The Mercedes C63 in something about Thomas Blue. Great color, right? This is a sedan. This is the Estate. All C63S models. This is the convertible C63S. And since the C63S, the top horsepower range, is for me the best combination here with the Coupe, with the sportiest look and the sportiest engine. In our today's review on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars, we will focus on the C63S Coupe with the racetrack experience and the everyday driving experience in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Well, you might remember we already tested the sedan facelift as a C43 and also the convertible as C400. So now more power here today with the Coupe, because we didn't have the Coupe yet. The Estate will follow later with the new cylinder on demand engine, which will also be very interesting. Since the 43 got the old 63 front grille, they had to do something newer. Almost looks like an AMG GT now from the front, and also a new lower spoiler. The headlamps come always with LED for convertible and the Coupe. For the other ones they are optional, but here optional in the multi-beam LED, which also gives you the LED full sight for the high beam. 4.68 m or 15'3" is the total length of the C-Class Coupe. And we have the rim choice for the bigger sports models here, 18, 19 inch. And then optional, you can see here 19 inch in the front, 20 inch in the rear, pretty unusual. And also you get this new rim design. This is now available. And also here optional the carbon ceramic brakes, but you probably see that already on camera. It's just for the front, not for the rear. And you know, carbon ceramic brakes, they leave the rims tidy, and sometimes you see the effect in that when you just have them on one axle, the front wheels are tidy and the rear ones have this braking dust. But for normal street use, I would not go for them. They are really something for the racetrack because they need to be pushed as well. The color here is gray magno. This has this matte effect. Super spectacular, I can tell you. And also this Coupe form is so beautiful, is my favorite lineup car here. As for the design, of course, if you know me a little bit closer, you know I would always take the convertible just to enjoy the open top driving, or the Estate for practical reasons, but the Coupe just looks the best. Or what do you think? And if you're interested in C-Class versus E-Class Coupe, there's a special feature video on of that on Autogefuehl as well. The 63 also has this stronger lower bumper, and of course the big rims, and also here the rear parts a little bit stronger overall, also with this additional protector right there. So overall a big stance on the road, and you can also see V8 bi-turbo. Tells us something which we see soon under the hood. Well, in the rear you really see it's a 63 or a 63S version. The 63S, of course, a little bit more horsepower, soon more to that. Also the differentiation between the normal models. Here you got a carbon fiber rear lip. You already hear some race cars in the background. And also this really big diffuser. Of course, different sports exhaust. It is really noticeable, especially if you turn on that exhaust valve. But the outer tips here are pure fake. And well, the advantage is when you have a short crash, a small crash something, then you don't have to replace the whole exhaust stuff, and you can also design it in the way you want to design it. But it's definitely not part of the exhaust. We had a discussion about that, but I mean, I'm standing here and I can see it's a separate piece, so no, it does not belong to the exhaust. So what's powering this thing? A 4-liter V8 bi-turbo, here handcrafted, you know, this one-man, one-engine concept by Mercedes-AMG. Pretty interesting. And as a 63, it got 476 horsepower. In the 63S, we hit a 510 horsepower. The acceleration figure is either 4 seconds or 3.9 here in the S version to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And by the way, the convertible and the estate is just 0.2 seconds slower. The Coupé and the sedan are basically the performance machines. This is the car key. You now get the one from the E-Class, also for the C-Class with the facelift, and here also with the AMG badge, then of course since it's an AMG. The Coupé has the wide doors, same to the convertible, so you see how long it is, and good quality here also with all the handles. There's the seat control. You can easily access it, and when the door is closed, you also have a seat heating right there. Galvanized buttons. There you can open the rear trunk, and you know, for bigger bottles, not that ideal, this inside pocket. And then we have some yellow accentuations. You have to like that for sure. The biggest news is that you now have a new AMG generation of steering wheels. First of all, the ACCs for all facelifts. Also here the Distronic Plus on the left side of steering, not a separate column. Then you have this new steering wheel with new dual spoke flat bottom, and the 63S gets the Alcantara. The Dynamica is the company here, so microfiber steering wheel. That's awesome. I really would love to have that at any time. And for the 63, you get that optional electric steering column control. Also good to have that. And the seats, well, they start with a normal sport seat, also with microfiber on the inside and Artico leather red on the outside. That's a great sustainable and sporty setup. Then those ones are the performance seats. They can also be bought in the same material combination, but this one here, the full animal skin pack, where you can surely save some money. You can see the performance seats are very slim for sure. So let's get inside. Of course, it's easy with the wide opening door there. Yeah, I smell some Thomas at the rear seat time codes comments when we get to the rear seat later on. So I'm 1.86 m or 6'1" if you're not subscribed. No panoramic roof inbuilt with this special vehicle. That leaves me a lot of headroom in the middle part, just, you know, towards the pillar here. It gets closer because the Coupé has this very elegant flat roof line. As I said earlier, you can control this steering wheel in an electric way, find a good position, and great grip again with this Alcantara steering wheel. This will also soon help me on the racetrack. Well, in reviews, it's always hard to control the Mercedes seats when you can't do it here. But actually it's, you know, when the door is closed, you can see what you're doing. So that's actually quite fine. I have to set the seat now as I would be driving and find a good seating position as a tall driver. Although the whole cockpit is rather narrow, so in the mid-size segment it is really a sporty orientation with more a little bit caged in sporty feeling rather than feeling free openly. This is the new setup here. I can also change the steering wheel. You can see better of the digital gauges. Soon deals to those, but the general setup would be still analog gauges on the left side, and on the right side a 7-inch screen. This the optional pack with 12.3-inch digital screen and 10.25-inch widescreen on the right side. But no touchscreen still, and come on, especially when standing still, that would have been so much easier. Rest of the details here is really wrapped tightly, really cool horizontal design. Then again, this awesome steering wheel, but so much controls here now at the steering wheel. You have the Distronic left, then right side volume and stuff. On the right lower part, you can have the drive selector now. That's easier than reaching to the middle console. And on the left side, you can pick different stuff, for example, exhaust or traction control, and then activate it with the plastic buttons. But the build quality here on those two parts, I already seen it on the motor shows, especially when you use them after quite a while, does not match the interior build quality of the rest. For the middle console, luckily you can get this carbon fiber trim here for the AMGs, that you don't have the all shiny piano black right there, and still a classic climate unit to be able to control all the stuff. And you control the infotainment system still with this classic turning and pressing knob. And to some interesting details, left side of the steering wheel you can deactivate the assistance systems. I don't like this lane keeping assist on the left side because it makes the steering wheel in the slow or in the small degree angles a little bit numb, so I like to deactivate and just steer myself, but the other ones are pretty cool. And here again up close how you can go to Sport or Sport Plus or the race mode even, and I'll talk about that when we drive the vehicle. And you know, while driving I think it's a little bit complicated. You switch the option when clicking those, you know, those screens. Those are real actual screens because they turn off when you turn off the car, and then you change it with the buttons. So for example here then activate the exhaust valve, and same for example also for the suspension settings, new adaptive suspension here for the AMG models. And you can control the infotainment system left side, basically the instruments here on the left part of the steering wheel, and then you have those digital instruments, in this case also with special AMG dials, but you can also, you know, this is the AMG performance meter, but you can also for example pick a normal one, you know, that's also possible, so you're not basically stuck with that. You can pick a different design and have, for example, a classic setup here, for example. Also the head-up display has a sporty look here with the speed and also with a big RPM meter inside then. Optional of course, the head-up display. And the right side of the steering wheel, I use my right thumb then to control the middle infotainment screen, to swipe or to press and select. The display has a very horizontal layout and it's pretty clean. The resolution is superb. You can either connect your phone via Bluetooth or also CarPlay or Android Auto with a cable then, that's possible. This is the menu. Browse it normal with this known turning and pressing knob. This is then the GPS. You can see again the visualization is really very cool. I like it. But the menu structure is sometimes a little bit too complicated to me. So when I just want to enter an address in a very fast way, and then you have to do, you know, this style again, I'm not so sure if that's really that handy. Overall, it does the job, but I think the command system is also way too expensive option overall. And with the AMG, you have, for example, also some special gauges, like performance gauges. For use on tracks only. Warning. Here we go. Track pace or, well, drag race or telemetry. You can do so much with it. I wonder if someone would be really using it. And talking about that rear camera, you can see it here. It's a very clear resolution. Here on the right side you can see also that the one camera is at the side mirror. So when you have one door open, you have one less perspective basically. You can pick different ones. Here also, for example, to protect your rims. You can see it here, that they don't get damaged. And again, a great resolution they have delivered right here. And this is then the pure rear camera, for example, also in different angles. So the lower middle console, you have a special AMG badge here, which is, again, you can really feel that. Nicely done. With this cover for adaptive cup holders too. And then you have the connecting USB port right there, where you can have the smartphone connect. Also, this is the pad next to it for inductive charging, if you have ticked that option. Now is the chance for you to state the time code, Thomas in the rear seat. Yes, it's coming. So the interesting thing is, well, this part here, and this is here questionable build quality for Mercedes, I think, somehow. It looks good, but it doesn't feel that right. So when you put it up here, see it moves up and in the front automatically. That's quite comfortable for sure. Also, the rear belt is not too blocking in some cars. You know, remember that, for example, from some Cadillacs, that those were real traps. So now how can I get inside? Like this, maybe. So, and well, you sit here, of course, a little bit cramped. Headroom, yeah, I do hit my my head at the ceiling. It is somewhat cozy here. I mean, if I duck my head a little bit, you can sit here for a short, maybe dropping someone off at a train station or so. If the co-driver seat would be in the front, then it would work for 3 adults. But here you will see, and now I'll sacrifice myself for. I'm glad this sensor reacted way enough. So it actually hit my feet underneath. So here you can see this still fits because the seat is also rather upright in my position, but you see it moved a little bit forward. So yes, for shorter trips, it is actually possible to sit here as an adult in the rear. So it is better than I expected actually. If you want to see the comparison against C-Class versus E-Class Coupe, and you will also see a different seat there, this was also interesting, then again go back to this comparison episode. So nothing for long travels, but you'll just be fine, I think. And child seat mounting is also possible, but of course without a rear door, a little bit tricky. So what about the trunk? Well, you cannot open it from the outside. You have to use the key either here or then from inside this special button I've showed you earlier. Then below that one here is basically nothing. Well, it's of course limited like in sedan, and also then in height even more limited. It steps up here a little bit. You can put luggage for 2 people inside here. That does actually work, we tested that. But of course you're somewhat limited if you want that extra design power from the Coupe. You can flip seats if you unlock them from the rear and then go around and flip them like this. Then you can load longer things through as well. And we start our driving report here on the racetrack Bilsterberg in Germany. Pretty unique racetrack because it has collected, just want you to collect the sound, it has collected driving parts of different racetracks all over the world. So you will notice maybe when you know some racetracks, some elements from here and some elements from there. So pretty unique also with the topography, so it goes up and down, and compression you will also experience, so really interesting. And with the C63S we got, well, something which is surely as hot as this one in front of us, the Magna Green Hell Mercedes-AMG GTR. But here with our 510 horsepower, we can basically we can actually close up to this one. I think the car behind us has lost us a little bit. The thing is always, when you are the one directly behind the instructor and you follow his line, then you're always better than the car behind you. That's, because that's the difference then between the professionals in front of us and us, for sure. Here now the compression. You really get pushed down in the seat, very interesting. Well, and the C63S, of course, has abundance of power, all rear-wheel drive, so you have to pay attention, but here we have a lot of grip, dry surface, that makes the cars, of course, the tires very sticky. I'm in sports mode, but I have turned on the sports exhaust valve for you, because with the sports mode, it actually gives me a little bit more safety in the Sport Plus. The traction control would be drawn back, and then already the rear could be braking out in some of the corners. And here, of course, we want to be really efficient. 180 in kilometers, here, right here. So now I'll let you some corners just alone with the sound, and also check the steering ratio. I have to wear the helmet, by the way. It's safety reasons. I'm also fine with it, even though it looks a little bit funny. I always feel like on camera like I'm in Spaceballs, the movie. You feel that the car gets a little bit loose when you're getting over those hills. It's very interesting. But overall, this car gives you a very good feeling. The steering is super precise. Of course, we've also disabled the driving assistance systems here, so no one is interfering in the way. smooth power delivery from this V8. Great sound. Wow. Of course, you always have to pay attention when you get the upward G-forces, then you lose a little bit of grip and have to be even more cautious. As you can see how fast I can steer this car around those corners. An interesting chicane here. Of course, you don't feel as low as, for example, in a AMG GT or like in a Porsche 911 or something. Then you really feel super low, connected to the ground. Here on the racetrack, you feel then the difference between a pure sports car and those sports cars that are based on a normal vehicle. And on the racetrack, the pure sports cars have the advantage. But the interesting thing is really that when we drive it later on the road, it will be exactly the opposite. And of course, the question is, what is this car for? Well, we do this racetrack test here to tell you about the racing features. For example, there's a stand equipment. Just let the acceleration there for you. For stand equipment, there's an electronic rear differential, and even for the normal C63, that helps you when you accelerate out of the corners to give some more stability and to control the torque of each wheel. And it's really a lot of fun to steer this car here around the track. Wow. You see, we're also getting a little bit more flow, a little bit smoother. Definitely a great setup we found here. So let's see, I'll also switch at the steering wheel, and then, I wouldn't control the middle console at the moment, I think. But here at the steering wheel, I could do that actually. So I'm now in the Sport Plus mode. Let's see if this is, any different. I feel the car is a little bit looser, especially in the rear end area. There we go. Maybe you also see that on camera. So when you are in the Sport Plus mode, the stability control is drawn back, and most vehicles I would also put in the race mode right here. But I'm also realistic with myself. I have a lot of experience in racetrack driving for sure, but I'm not a professional racetrack driver. I'm a professional reviewer.
Second car, come closer, please. Second car, closer.
And in the racetrack mode here, already in the Sport Plus mode, you feel, because you have so much power, 510 horsepower just on the rear axle, that even on dry surface now, you can get the rear end loose. And I love to do that on snow tracks and stuff, but here on dry tracks it can be very dangerous if you're not super schooled in that. And again, most of the other cars I would put in the race mode, but here I'm also realistic to remain in the Sport Plus mode. It doesn't make such a difference, and sound-wise will be the same, but again the rear end will be just a little bit looser. And especially in those parts where it was up and down, I also saw it.
Be careful, okay, last corner, slow down more.
In the we actually caught the other group here, so we were actually quite fast. It seems that we caught the other group just in a few laps. So especially when we have those gravity cavity stuff here, then you feel the traction control working or not working that much anymore. So you have to adapt to the driving mode you applied actually. And so I would say Sport Plus and Race, definitely just something for the racetrack. With the Sport you could still be quite safe and the car let you play a little bit. Maybe with the Sport Plus you have to know your thing, and it has to be dry and good grip. By the way, I'm quite well kept tight with the seats here. It would be better if I had the microfiber surface on the inside, then I wouldn't be sliding on the down surface. That would be definitely better. But that's really for the racetrack. So if you're off the racetrack, better stay with the standard seats. I can already tell you so far. Nowadays, when we go up here, I have to, wow, even if I'm on the brakes, I still feel that the car is getting loose a little bit. I mean, it's just physics, What do you think here about our driving experience? Definitely smooth, but at the same time also brutal experience. Here, get on the gas, speed, 130, 140, 150, wow. So abundance of power you surely got with this one, and probably C63. I mean, it's one of the classics in the AMG model lineup, and will always be, I think, because we will show you later also in the normal street driving part. This can indeed be used both for racetrack and for the normal driving experience. That's also, you know, one of the key elements of this vehicle. Even if probably, you know, not so many people will put it on a racetrack. Here, when watching Autogefuehl, you can be a little bit safer then, and also enjoy this experience with us and see how maybe your home C63 would perform here on the racetrack. For suspension setup, again, they worked on that a little bit. So really stiff it was here, definitely on the racetrack. A lot of fun just to experience, and you know, but definitely a pleasure also to watch, because you guys don't have to sweat here and don't have to feel the G-forces. I do, and that was, you know, pretty intense experience, I can tell you. After the racetrack, also some normal driving impressions when you drive it in your everyday driving life here with the C63. It will, of course, at some point remain a normal C-Class, and there's also not much of a driving difference between sedan, convertible, the Coupe and the Estate. Basically same cars. Here, of course, it's special now with the 63, with a powerful engine. And the new suspension setup really helps you also in those everyday driving life situations. That's pretty cool, because there's now a wider span between comfort on the one hand and the sporty approach on the other hand. So when I leave it here in comfort mode, I can drive somewhat comfortable in the city. Also, although we have 20-inch rims mounted here, it's still giving me a quite decent, comfortable ride. When I keep it rather slow, I can also score about 12.5 liters on 100 kilometers as for consumption. Still, of course, too high for any car, but it's a performance vehicle, and then you also want to use the power at some point. And even if you leave it here in a comfort mode and cruise a little bit, very cool to have this Alcantara steering wheel. Gives you also comfort in your normal driving, but at the same time, you're always ready to give it a punch, even if you're in the non-sporty mode. So as soon as you you just look over to your cameraman and see like, boom. No, Holger is fine. Holger's just fine. He's used to that kind of stuff. Of course, you can at any time also use the shifting pedals and then shift down yourself first. That's actually also better for the co-driver then. And you can use those pedals here. They try to do something like those manual hand drive crisp shifting commands, transport it over to the automatic system here with the shift pedals, because like, you know, the click also and the haptic feedback you get, it's like a crisp shifting with a manual one. Really cool. And so you can control it yourself then, shift down a little bit, have some more fun here on those nice countryside roads. And you remain, by the way, in a good overview. The Coupe does not have a B-pillar, so you can also see quite well over your shoulders. But you also have a blind spot monitor, for example, in case, and when you use the turning indicators, you also get an acoustic sound when a car is next to you. It's pretty well done. Here at higher speeds also, slalom-wise, really good stability. Just in this very, you know, small area, sometimes the steering wheel could give me a little bit of feedback, just in the like minus or plus 2 degrees. But everything else very well to control. And I also somehow prefer to have this normal mid-size car tuned in a sports car way than this true sports car feeling, because you can do a little bit more with this vehicle and it feels a little bit more normal. Of course, some people want this very extraordinary sports car, pure sports car feeling, but most people will probably be more satisfied with the setup like they have here. And with the different modes, you can also easier select that than here on the steering wheel, as I shown you earlier. That also gives you some comfort. You can still do it here in the middle console, but definitely easier to do it right here. Or also, you know, change something of the suspension setting, but usually even if you leave it in the comfort mode, this car is already so sporty. Also, if you compare it to the C43, which has the all-wheel drive, somewhat more suitable for everyday driving. As soon as, when it gets wet, for example, then you have, over 500 horsepower here on the rear axle. You have to pay attention, especially when you go, for example, to a sport mode or sport plus. Even the ESP is drawn back and it gets more loose. Here now, when we have the dry road and a lot of grip, it's actually quite okay. But when it's get wet, then you really have to pay attention not to lose your rear end. So the 43 definitely better for everyday driving life, a little bit more comfortable as well. This one here then for the pure sports enthusiast, and of course you have to be quite skilled also to handle this rear-wheel drive, this enormous power also in critical situations. But here you can also just let it roll, and then the V8 is also actually quite silent, especially when you're in the comfort mode, but at the same time you have the possibility to tune it up always. Again, if you ask me between sedan and coupe, do I feel a difference? Not really that much. Convertible, of course, you want to open the top all the time, but also on the motorway, the convertible is meanwhile so well insulated. We've recently seen it in our review, also tuned into our convertible and sedan review, and the estate will also be coming up. Even at higher speeds, the convertible is quite silent, so the coupe doesn't have the biggest advantage there. The coupe, you would rather go for that if you really want this most elegant styling on the exterior and you don't care about opening the roof or so, and the sedan is maybe too old school for you. But in driving, it more depends if you go for normal version, C43, C63. And the best thing again for this facelift is that they have a wider span between comfort and sporty driving with the suspension. The suspension really doing a great job. Also hard on the brakes here and great control. You are so much in control of this vehicle. I love that. Also with the Alcantara steering wheel is not helping you on the racetrack. Also when you just cruising around here, it just feels nice. Feels like petting the car a little bit. And so, next inner city passage, roll a little bit. With a sports exhaust, of course, you're always somewhat loud, but you can limit it with the driving modes then somewhat, and if you don't push the throttle that hard, then when we exit the city again, we can push it once more. You don't have to, in comfort mode you cannot really lose the rear end that much, and ESP is also controlling it, but then again, if you go to the other modes, you can somewhat lose it. Here also, when I'm going for the Sport Plus mode, by the way, I feel those small bumps in the road immediately. And of course, while city driving here, that's not something I would want. Just gets a little bit rougher then and doesn't really suit us. But then comfort mode again, you feel a big difference indeed in the suspension, getting a little bit smoother, but it remains this super sporty setup. It's always sportier than the 43, even in the sports mode, for example. Then you can also accelerate a little bit further when you get out the next village here. And you get this sovereign acceleration, even if you don't floor it out completely. You just mildly on the gas, and the V8 brings the car to life once again. And I think that's also a reason why you would maybe pick it, not because you want to hammer it all the time, but also because you want this very sovereign feeling when acceleration, that maybe you don't have to floor it out all the way, and it already comes with a small pressing on the pedal. Very interesting for sure. Noise insulation is, by the way, again decent as we know it from Mercedes. I wouldn't say it's leading in the segment. And also you feel difference, for example, when you say about upper mid-size segment, as I came to this event in the Audi A6 still, and this is really big noise insulation difference to a mid-size car here to the Mercedes. Just also some interesting findings we see when we compared different cars from different segments, for sure. So again, very good feeling here at about 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. So I would say yes, this is still somewhat everyday driving life is suitable, this vehicle, also in this highest horsepower spec, especially with the new suspension. Also we have 20-inch rims, and they're still quite okay in the combination. The only thing I really have to talk about again, do not go for the super sport seats unless you've tested them yourself and it is strangely somewhat more suitable for your special body. For mine it isn't, and also for most other people I've talked to, this gives me super back pain after a while in the lumbar area. I would always go with the base sport seats. They're already sporty enough and just give you more flexibility and also better long-term comfort, because for the racetrack that might be good with those bigger shoulder areas and stuff to hold you tight, but then again, why would you pick it in a leather surface? Yeah, I mean, this one here, the super sport seats, they are also available with Dinamica, with the microfiber, so that would be the optimum setup then for the racetrack. But if you're not using this car on the racetrack all the time, then do yourself a favor and go for the more comfortable seats. Then you can enjoy this car even more. And with those base sport seats, I would then really say, then this car is still somewhat compliant with the normal driving life you still have. And of course, always when you have this car, you can still spice it up as soon as you go on the throttle. As soon as you leave the comfort mode, the car really tells you, go for it, go for it. But when you stay in the comfort mode, you can also drive it in a somewhat relaxing manner. Let's go to the sport mode again, then already the sound tells me that. That was, by the way, a warning now. Maybe saw the approaching car and was thinking, maybe it's time to brake. Sometimes the sensor does catch something which is not meant to be. That also happens, but better it's a little bit pre-warning than it would miss out on something or so. Now again, the very soaring growling from the V8. Great countryside route here also to drive, sometimes to relax, then to accelerate again a little bit better. Super controlled feeling, good feedback then also from the steering wheel in those corners. Definitely a pleasure to drive with a combination of engine, suspension and the steering setup, and overall so much in control of the vehicle still when you're here on the dry roads. Again, the overall better bargain, price performance, and also more suitable for your day driving will still be a C63. This one here, if you have enough money to floor it out to the max. Even if I could pick freely, I would still go for the 43. Because this car can be a little bit too extreme in some situations. But if you want exactly this extreme approach, then this one is delivered here by the C63S. And you can see it not only on the racetrack, but also on your personal racing experience just from day to day. Here, when I hit the turning indicator, I have a blind spot monitor. It's the triangle there in the side mirror, and you also heard this acoustic warning now. So when I have the turning indicator activated and something is next to me, then I also get this acoustic warning. So it's an additional safety feature. I can try it again. Here, there we go. So I think that's very good. And this option here, the blind spot monitor, is probably the option you should go for first in the options list. Very, very important. Also have a good sight on the head-up display, also on the road, so I keep my eyes then to the cars in front of us, so that's really cool. And then it's so easy to get speed with this car, even if you just gently press the throttle. Now we're already at 140 kilometers. That's really so easily done. And of course, as soon as you hit floor button, and that's 175. So, and of course, you also can hear the sound. And now to our conclusion for today with the Mercedes-AMG C63S here as a coupe. Well, the facelift in general for all of the 4 different body styles had some subtle changes on the exterior. We can also see that here on the coupe. Definitely a very strong front for this mid-size vehicle. Also pretty impressive in this Magno matte grey paint. On the interior, of course, more changes with this digitalization. You can get optional, all digital gauges on the left and the bigger screen on the right, but still no touchscreen. So when standing still, it's a little bit annoying then. Overall, the quality is of course really high. Just with the seating, great for the racetrack, but stay with the base seats, I can tell you just so. I'm probably the 4th time now. I will get some haters for that, some performance seat lovers, but you know, if you love them, if you get along with them, you can still get them. But I can just say for most of the people, the normal ones will do just fine. Here in the coupe, of course, you waste the most space actually. So you cannot open the top and you don't have really much room in the rear, but it has the most elegant exterior line. And so since we had the C43 as a sedan and the C400 as a convertible, and soon the estate with the smaller petrol engine with cylinder-on-demand technology, I felt this was a very harmonic combination for today with the coupe. Driving experience, of course, pure power all on that rear axle. You feel it on the racetrack then, especially the differences between the different models. On the street, a C43 will also do just fine. As I said, you can leave that one for dreaming and maybe drive a C43 with maybe 30,000, 40,000 euros less or something, save some money and still get a better suitable everyday driving car. This one here, if you really want the most extreme one and want to be pushed by the car also while driving it every day. Looking forward to your feedback now. What do you think? Would you go for this one here, coupe, convertible, estate or sedan? Which one would you take? And would you go for a 63 or 43? Or are you just happy with one of the base engines? Tell me and also join us next time.